Inside Studio 3, we get the topic of conversation back to the National League West. Jaffe of Baseball Perspectives joins us. Earlier we talked about the Dodgers in high heat, touched on a lot of different things. But how about their leadoff man, their table setter? Don Mattingly already said that Dee Gordon will bat at the top of the lineup. What can we expect?
Well, Gordon's a small guy who's got blazing speed, but he hasn't really developed either power or plate discipline. I think he's going to struggle atop the lineup. I don't see him as a true #1 hitter. Our Pacoda projection system has him at a .289 on base percentage, .318 slugging percentage with 36 steals. That's a lot more valuable to your fantasy team than it's going to be the Dodgers, who are hurting for offense all over the place.
He is certainly a burner on the bases, no question about that. Same can be said for Cameron Maybin. We talked about the news of his extension. What do you make on that for both sides?
I love the deal for both sides. The Padres are locking in a guy who's already an above-average center fielder, both offensively and defensively, in a park where defense is at a premium. He's locked up through his age 29 season. They've got cost certainty. He's got some, he's going to make his money. I think it's a very good deal.
Now, of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks were the team that won the National League West last year. They did it on the strength of a very good season for Ian Kennedy and Daniel Hudson. Now they bring in Trevor Cahill as well. They get him in a trade from the A's. You look at this staff. What do you make of those three guys?
Boy, it's a really nice rotation that they're working on there. They're young. They're inexpensive. Kennedy and Hudson are both not even arbitration eligible yet. They miss a good number of bats. Cahill's trending upwards in particular. The other two guys more. They all limit the home runs as well. Both Hudson and Kennedy get a lot of pop flies. Cahill's a ground baller. It's a really nice rotation.
So with that ground balling, and we can see the heavy sinker that Trevor Cahill's got, he'll be fine in that new ballpark.
I think he'll be good.
Yeah.
I think he'll be good.
Trevor Bauer, the #3 overall pick in last year's draft. Where might he fit in this rotation?
Scouts think that he's eventually going to be the #1 in that rotation, which when you look at what they've got already, that's pretty tremendous. I mean, Bauer's a guy who misses a ton of bats, really, kind of undersized. Maybe, there's been Tim Lincecum comparisons as a guy who's, not quite the prototypical power pitcher, but I think he's going to help them by the second half of this season and eventually take his place at the front of the rotation.
And you got to like the fact that it's a young rotation, too. I mean, you mentioned not arbitration eligible. You got a guy who was a 3rd overall pick. Going forward, that's got to be good for that club.
Yeah, it's a great foundation from which to build.
No question about that. Now, we talked about two things with the Giants usually. We talk about how great their pitching staff is. Nobody can argue that. And we talk about how maybe not so great their offense is as well. They don't have Carlos Beltran for this year. They don't have Cody Ross. What they did get back in some trades was Angel Pagan, Melky Cabrera. Is that going to be enough to fill those voids?
I don't think so. I mean, Melky, for example, is coming off a career year in a hitter's park. His OPS was 100 points higher than his lifetime OPS. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that production. And when you look, he and Pagan are both seem to be ahead of Brandon Belt when it comes to playing time. It's Belt who's got to fight for the at-bat. So when you look at our Pacoda projections, Belt has the second highest on-base percentage and slugging percentage of any of the guys there. He shouldn't have to be fighting for at-bats.
Buster Posey comes back to this lineup as well.
Posey's definitely going to be a big help, I think. They really missed him last year, especially because Eli Whiteside wasn't much of a hitter. So that's a big improvement there.
And I know that we talked last week about the projections for Brandon Belt. If you could just go a little bit deeper into that, because it was an up-and-down season for him last year.
We have him at a .349 on-base percentage and .429 slugging percentage. The Giants were particularly hurting for on-base percentage last year, so that's going to help him. But, I think the one thing you have to remember, I mean, while that seems low, it's also was in a season where he kind of struggled, got sent down early, then got hurt with a wrist injury and had to work his way back from that. So I think these projections are probably underrating him just a little bit.
Up and down in terms of numbers and trips to and from the minor leagues. How about the Colorado Rockies? That rotation's got a good mix of youth and some veterans. Of course, 49-year-old Jamie Moyer signed to a minor league deal. Not sure if he's going to make the rotation at the beginning of the season, but younger guys, especially through the trade of Ubaldo Jimenez, Alex White, Drew Pomeranz, and some other guys in that rotation as well. But have they done enough to fortify that staff for 2012?
Well, they've certainly got the numbers. They brought in a couple guys in the Seth Smith trade from Oakland, in Josh Outman and Guillermo Moscoso. But when you look, both of those guys are fly ballers. Moscoso is one of the most extreme fly ballers in all the AL last year. That's not going to play particularly well in Colorado. What I do like is the fact that Juan Nicasio had a nice 2-inning spring debut this weekend. He's coming back from a severe neck injury. They didn't know what they were going to get out of him. Now he's a rotation candidate and one of the ones who's definitely more ready. They're also hopefully going to get Jorge De La Rosa back sometime mid-season. So when you add it all up, there's a lot of guys from which they can draw and get some nice mix of experience and youth. I'm still not sure it's going to be enough in that division. I think the Diamondbacks are just way ahead of everybody else.
And we talked in the break about how the Rockies had, for the last few years, focused on getting ground ball pitchers to try to keep the ball in the ballpark. Maybe not trying to do that so much anymore.
Yeah, like I said, these guys are mostly fly ballers. I mean, Jamie Moyer is a fly baller over the course of his career. Pomerantz is a fly baller. White profiles as the highest ground ball guy, but you look at the small sample size. He got crushed with the Rockies last year, something like 2.7 homers per 9.
Jay Jaffe, a baseball perspective. Great stuff as always. Appreciate the time. Still to come, Bill Petty of